The Sony Pictures movie The Interview was released in the U.S. on Christmas Day after all, though in small limited screens. And here in Korea, a couple of local films are ending the year on a high note. Here to guide us through the latest development is our film critic, Pierce Conran. Good afternoon, Pierce.
Good afternoon to you.
So we ended last week wondering if we will ever get a chance to see the movie The Interview, but it looks like we got the answer sooner than expected.
Absolutely. Obviously, the film was canceled last week, and there's been a big kind of a turnaround now that the film was indeed released yesterday on screens in America, albeit in a much smaller rate than was originally planned. As with any mainstream release, Sony Pictures were looking to throw out the film at about 3,000 theaters, and now the number is about 300 because none of the major chains will show the film. And what actually happened was a smaller group of art houses came together, and so we're looking at about 300 screens are showing the film at the moment.
And it's also available online as well, right?
That's correct, yeah. It's been released on YouTube, on Google Play, and there's even a dedicated website called, I think it's seetheinterview.com.
Right. So what prompted Sony's sudden change of heart, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's a few things. There was a big kind of public backlash about this happening. A lot of the word freedom of expression, freedom of speech, these have been bandied around quite a lot. One of the big turning points was a few days ago when President Barack Obama made a statement saying that he was disappointed that Sony had canceled the film. Now, the CEO of Sony, Michael Linton, kind of shot back saying, well, the distributors or the exhibitors wouldn't show the film, so we were kind of compelled to do that. But then, of course, the exhibitors weren't very happy that he had said that, so ultimately the film was released. Well, what happened was this group called Arthouse Convergence, which is a group of these smaller chains and art house theaters. They made a petition, and so they petitioned Sony. And one of the leading voices of that was the CEO of Alamo Drafthouse, a company I mentioned last week. This guy called Tim League, who was really pushing for this. And so it was a successful endeavor on their part. And so the film is now available, albeit in a limited format.
So what is the current status of the film's release right now? You did go over it briefly, but...
Yeah, so it's on 300 screens, just over 300, and that may change over time. After, if nothing happens, basically in the first week, maybe the larger chains will jump on board, but that remains to be seen. But the film is available for anyone in North America. It's only in North America at this point to view online as well. But those 300 cities, or 300 theaters do cover most major cities, so there's a very good chance of people seeing it. And there have been a lot of sellouts reported. Numbers are starting to come in. I'm hearing talk of 3 to 4 million for the 4-day Christmas weekend, which for 300 screens is certainly a good number, and also keeping in mind that those screens are smaller than your usual multiplex screens.
Right. And we did say that the film is available online. So do you still have to pay for the movie, though?
Yes. Okay. There was talk. There was a rumor initially that they were going to put it online for free, but that didn't pan out. That makes sense. It's available for, I believe it's $5.99 for the normal version. This is in dollars, and the HD version is $14.99. And this is kind of a very unique case because normally major exhibitors insists that if they book a film, it cannot be made available on any other platform for at least 3 months.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so there's different windows. There's maybe 3 months for VOD, then maybe 6 months for a DVD or Blu-ray release. However, the market is changing a lot, and a lot of smaller distributors and exhibitors are experimenting with new things. So, for instance, Snowpiercer is a good example, as it was released this summer in America, but after 2 weeks in theaters, it was already made available on VOD, and it turned out to be a big hit on VOD, although some people were still not happy that it wasn't thrown out in more theaters. But so this is kind of in a sense, is kind of a lucky experiment as well, because we'll see what can happen if you have a major film released at the same time in theaters and on VOD, and kind of see what figures it gets and how those compare. So we'll see how that goes. Okay,
and on to the question that I'm most curious about. So what are people saying about the film, those who have watched it in theaters or online?
Well, the reaction has been mixed. I mean, the critical response was already mixed going in. Some people really enjoyed it. A lot of people just thought it was very silly, and some people were almost a little bit angry about it. And this has been kind of reflected by the public as well. I mean, this is a very unique case of talking about a film, because you're not necessarily judging it on its own merits, because there's a much larger issue at play. And one of those issues is the representation of North Korea. And people feel that, people are saying, saying, well, there's this kind of freedom of speech and expression. We're being patriots by going to see this film. At the same time, people are saying, well, this movie doesn't actually put North Korea in a proper light, and it's kind of it's skirting the issues, and it's not really, it's just not serious. And of course, it's a comedy. It's not supposed to be very serious.
Not at all.
But so a lot of people are kind of iffy about it. And some people say, well, this is not a patriotic thing. You shouldn't be going to see the film for that reason. So everyone has their own opinion, which they're entitled to. But it'll be curious to see how the large reaction, the consensus develops over time.
If you get a chance to see it, you will have to share it with us about what you thought about the film. Now, let's shift our focus back here in the nation. The local film industry did break the 100 million admission mark this year. So how significant is that milestone?
Well, it's a huge number, and that represents 2 tickets for every citizen to having seen a Korean film. So it just shows how healthy the industry still is locally. That being said, this is the 3rd year on the trot that the local industry has breached that mark, and 3rd time overall as well. But it was much slower than the last 2 years. In 2012, it was reached a month earlier. Last year was reached 2 months earlier. So we're a bit behind schedule this time. But Hollywood has been very dominant this year, and actually at the moment the Korean market share is just below the 50% mark. But I have a feeling it'll go just over before the end of the year, because there are some big films doing well at the moment.
Right, and we cannot not talk about My Love Don't Cross That River. That is breaking just records. It sold 3 million tickets so far, a new record set by a documentary film.
It's a new record set by any independent film, actually, and it had 260,000 admissions yesterday, so we can still expect it to go much further. And also, speaking of records, Interstellar finally crossed 10 million yesterday as well. So it's the 13th film to do that, and the 3rd this year. That's the first time we've had 3 films cross the mark in a year.
Okay, well, all the films that we are going to have at the end of the year, and people who haven't watched the film yet will have a chance to go. We'll still have a couple of days left, right? All right.
Plenty of time.
Of the year, left. Thank you very much, Pierce, for coming in today.
My pleasure.